This is the Aftermarket Radio Network. Hey, Carm here, and welcome to the 611th episode of Remarkable Results Radio. And when we talk about hiring, there are a lot of questions that always come to mind. For many, it's your least favorite job. You may have in your business life hired and fired 100 people or more. Now, hiring can be a chore or an art, especially if you are looking for just that right team member. Bryan Kelley realized that he needed to get a process down to help improve the quality of the individual he added to his team and his business culture. Bryan Kelley, shop owner of Valley Automotive, Covington, Washington, and president of ASA Northwest, has been a great contributor to the podcast. He will share his hiring practices and the reason why he does them. This is one of those gems of a podcast that keeps you in the front row of life in the auto service business. And in this episode, we get into why it is so important to hire for a cultural fit. Now, we also discuss the interview process and job offers. And Bryan also gets into job posting, job descriptions, and specific indicators you need to find in a good hire. Hey, thanks for always tuning in and listening to the Aftermarket's original and premier podcast. Carm Capriato, the Aftermarket podcast guy, and our business acumen today is sponsored by Napa. Due to the current restrictions in place in Las Vegas, Napa has made the proactive decision to postpone the Napa Expo. We remain committed to provide a valuable in-person experience at the proper time, and we look forward to hosting you when we can do it safely. Hey, I hope you've discovered our informative show, Aftermarket Weekly. Now, that's where we feature the wisdom from a guest host and the industry's first ever weekly virtual shop tour. AW is now a podcast. Find it on your preferred podcast listening app. Search for Aftermarket Weekly and subscribe. And thanks. Hey, you can find Bryan Kelley's other episodes and this episode's key talking points. They reside at remarkableresults.biz/E611. Hey, this is why I podcast. Hey, warm welcome to Bryan Kelley, Valley Automotive, Covington, Washington. Hi, Bryan.
Hey, Carm. How are you doing today?
Man, you were on a great Town Hall Academy with me just a few weeks ago. Thank you so much for doing that. You've been a great contributor of the show. Thank you. And I know one thing that you're very passionate about, and that is the hiring process. And, Bryan's a systems process guy. And, if it doesn't fit into a bullet pointed numerical list, it doesn't happen at Valley Automotive. So we figured, well, what great opportunity that we can have as an industry to listen to his process. And I'll bet you somebody's going to learn just one thing.
Sometimes that's all you need. Anytime you talk about looking at another business and experience, I always say if I can take one or two things away, I've won. So excited to talk about it.
Let's start. You're in charge here.
Anytime I talk about hiring process, to me, it really comes down to why do we do it? And I think it became even bigger for me because I really don't like doing it. I don't like hiring. I don't like firing. So if I don't like doing those two things, I want to do it as little as possible. And the only way I can do it as little as possible is to have a process that ensures we get the right people. So, spent a lot of time either between reading, trial and error, because I can tell you, if it's been screwed up, I guarantee I've done it. I can screw it up with the best of them. So
I don't want to jump in too soon here, but you just made me think about how much I always blamed myself for a hire going bad or if you will, ghosting, a no-show. It took days to pick myself up and out, and I just kept looking back and say, what did I do wrong?
Yeah. And before I even jump in, if we take anything away from this, if there's one thing I hope everybody can take away, I hope it's that we understand how important it is to understand what it is you're looking for, and to not just understand it, but to name the behaviors and the qualities that you're looking for before you even begin the process. And if you take nothing else away from this, that's the one thing that I hope everybody can walk away from. If you've been like me, bringing just a warm body in isn't going to do anybody good.
So instead of saying, I want somebody like Charlie there, and you keep looking for the Charlie type guy, but you never defined what Charlie type guy is or lady. Smart, very good.
And the key is when you talk about the Charlie type guy, what is it that you like about him? And it's, well, man, I like it. He's punctual. He's hardworking. He's humble. He's really people smart. Once you start naming the behaviors, not only have you named them so you know what you're looking for, but Now you can tailor questions to them. That's where I think the magic begins, because all of us might have something different that we want, but we need to know what it is.
No doubt it's going to take longer to find that person. You're going to have to find someone who just doesn't fog a mirror.
That I think is a critical part, so I've hired the one who doesn't, just fogs a mirror, and I've done it more times than I'd even like to share. But at the end of the day, I would rather work shorthanded with a good team than bring a bad team member in just to fill a slot. And that's a lot of where this came from. And, at the end of the day, if you care about people, and I know we all care about our business, but if you bring the wrong person in, it's bad for the business. If you bring the wrong person in, it's bad for that person. It doesn't make good sense to not understand these things. So really, really critical that when I went through this, that I felt like I got it right. That to me was a big deal. So really where we start with this thing is exactly like I explained. We name the behaviors. We're looking for the right person. And if you've ever taken an HR class, a hiring class, they tell you, find the right person. It's not about the skill set. In our world, the right person still has to be able to develop that skill set. So there's a little corollary there, and you have to understand aptitude. But if they have the aptitude, now you're looking for the person. And I think that's the critical. So often we say, I just want the superstar technician. But when we look behind him and see 12 miles of baggage dragging in behind him, that should be the immediate indicator that, oh boy, is this going to work for us?
And I bet you it doesn't take long in the first interview to figure out what the baggage is.
Yeah, sometimes, but it's about having the right questions to ask. If you're just asking, can you do this? How do you do that? Can you do this? Every time you're going to fail, because guess they can do it all, and they can do everything that you need, and maybe they can't. But do they fit the culture of the organization? Do they fit the culture of your group?
It's so easy in an interview for a candidate to say, yes, I can do that. And then you accept yes as the answer instead of going deeper. And when you start going deeper and you say, oh, great, well, I do it one particular way. How do you do it? You ask if they can, then you ask how they can do it. And can you share with me a trick or two? And maybe you're looking for technique, if you will, in skill, but then so much time has to be worked on the people's side, the human element, if you will, that person who comes in and totally disrupts your culture.
And that's where the challenge comes in. And so for us, like I said, we named the behavior. We stole this from a book called The Ideal Team Player. I'm hungry smart, and smart means people smart.
Hey, Carm here. And coming up, Bryan talks about the offer and pay plans. Hey, it's Carm here to tell you about the best shop management solution for your auto care center, Trackz Enterprise. Now, since Napa introduced Trackz in 1989, it's been the industry's leading shop management system out there. Today, Trackz Enterprise offers even more of the features auto care center owners want, things like a powerful interactive scheduling calendar, faster and streamlined workflow, multi-shop capabilities, easy pay consumer financing integration, and more. That means you can count on Trackz Enterprise to help drive your success today and well into the future. The tabbed interface lets you open and view multiple estimates, ROs, invoices, and purchase orders, all at the same time. You can even place windows side by side, over or under, or drag a tab from another application outside Trackz to open another window. One auto care center owner said he loves being able to have 10 to 12 work orders open at once. Enterprise also offers a Microsoft Outlook-type calendar so you can view daily, weekly, and monthly schedules, drag and drop appointments between days and times, and block time to indicate length of work. Punch out to Mitchell Pro Demand is another huge benefit. It provides embedded labor, part, maintenance, and fluid capacities that can be transferred to estimates and repair orders within Trackz. Trackz Enterprise also streamlines parts ordering. Just one click, and it's done. The mobile capture app sold another auto care owner on Trackz Enterprise. He said there's no reason to write VINs by hand anymore. You can decode the VIN from a mobile device and send all the information directly to Trackz. There are reporting features too. For example, with just a couple of clicks, you can find out how many repair orders you've written in a month. Talk to your Napa Auto Parts store and find out more about what Trackz Enterprise can do for you, plus the hundreds of other great things the Auto Care program has to offer. By the way, I looked up that book the last time you were on. That's Patrick Lencioni, I think, who wrote that.
Yeah, it is.
I put it on my books page so that anybody wants to go get it.
Great author, lots of good stuff. He's really all about teamwork. And this just falls right back in line with the rest of his stuff. But, we name the behaviors humble, hungry, smart being people smart. Can they go out and talk to other people? And those were our key culture components. And then there's a secondary one. We look at a person for whether they're a rock star or a superstar. And I stole that out of another book, can't remember which one. But another, it's a great way to look at people. And by rock star, the question is, do they want to hang out? Do they want to stay in the position they're in? Are they a solid rock? And then the second one is superstar. Superstars are always looking to rise. They want to go somewhere. And if you can delineate between those two types of people, you know what you're hiring. So we look for those basic qualities, humble, hungry, smart, and superstar, rock star. And if we're in a position where we need a rock star, somebody who we just know wants to be in the position we're hiring for, and we see a superstar, somebody that wants to jump through, we have to make a decision. Do we want somebody we know that's probably going to be short term? That's why that's a really key piece. And it's never bad to make short term hires, but you want to go into it knowing that. And you want to let them know even too. Hey, you look like somebody who wants to grow and do more. Would this work for you? I know you're not going to be a forever person. And think of the load you just took off of them and how much more open they're going to be with you because you saw it right away. And this is a culture I hear from a lot of other shop owners. If that person quits working for me, I will never hire them back. And I think to myself, you're missing opportunities. Yes, as employers, we give these things to people and we want them to be a part of the team, but we can't. In today's day and age, we can't put a blindfold on and say, I will never bring you back because you left. And you're going to lose every superstar there is out there.
Yeah. What if someone left so that they had an opportunity, they wanted to better themselves, there was maybe better training opportunities, whatever the reason is, and then 5-6 years later, something happened in their world that prompted them to pick up the phone and say, hey, Bryan, I'm out of work. I loved working for you. A lot of great things have happened. What do you think? And you say, absolutely not. I mean, if you learn that person is at another level, a perfect timing for you and your business, that would be a shame to be so close-minded.
Not just that, but think of the culture you set when they believe that you say that. I will never hire anyone back. They aren't even going to come looking. When you would need them most, they will say, well, they would never want me back. And so it really is a culture piece. And you just have to remember, not everybody wants to be in one position their entire life. There are people that they want to climb the ladder. Some will get there, some won't, but make sure your door's open in case they want to come back.
You're right. And that attitude permeates through the culture of your business. And guess what? The rest of the community and the industry knows that's how you are. I mean, there's no secrets. The techs talk amongst each other and says, hey, if you ever want to come here, maybe come back someday, don't come here.
Well, exactly. And to me, that's the piece is if industry-wide, they know how you operate, they know what you do, and they know you're with good culture, and I always say you care about the people, because whether you care about them or whether you don't, they know, and they always know. So it's a whole lot easier, and I find in life, if you care about people, they tend to care about you as well. So it's always a win-win relationship.
I love your point. Think of a first date and know what you're looking for. I mean, for me, that's many, many years ago, but I can get that. I can get that mental picture.
Yeah, I use that analogy constantly. We're on a first date, and I'm going to see the best of you. And so now I better know, again, we go back to those humble, hungry, smart. We go back to rockstar, superstar. I'm looking for indicators the entire time I'm talking to you. And I'm seeding language to see, tell me why you left your last job. Okay, well, you were looking for something better. Okay, well, tell me a little bit more about that. Oh, you left your last job because, gosh, you were the best person there. Oh, and nobody could keep up with you. And you got tired of working around idiots. And as you hear the language come to you, now you can say, oh, boy, that guy doesn't sound very humble. But did he work around a bunch of idiots? I don't know. Let's ask some more questions. And as you begin to form this, and this is really once we get them into the place, once we had that live one-on-one interview, And I'll even seed some of these questions in my phone interview, but that's usually just pure screen. So by the time they get in front of me and they're answering these questions, we've had a little bit of a process getting them there. But you're tailoring it to unwrap all of this. And as you begin to paint your picture and you understand where they fit with the culture you're looking for, you take it another step further. And you bring in my case, I'll bring in my service manager. Emily, would you mind coming in here and asking or talking and discussing a little bit here with Charlie? Oh, absolutely. And then they have a series of questions that are prepared as well. And you're going to do that with 2 or 3 different employees. And the idea there is once you're done, all of you come back and compare notes. And did you think they were humble? Did you think they really were a hard worker?
In the comparing notes thing, Bryan, are you writing notes? Are you putting down one word of feelings as you go through the interview, or is that a distraction?
I take notes the whole time. Absolutely.
I'm a note taker, and I would want to be writing that down, because if you all got together and wanted to compare air quotes notes, you have to write down exactly when that lightning bolt struck. Is you're looking for humble, hungry, smart, and Rockstar, superstar. You get indications, and you got to almost make a note real quick.
What you find when you're talking to them, you almost find yourself crossing off one. Wow, this person extremely humble. We don't even need to go down that anymore. Or they're extremely hungry. You'll pretty much cross it off. No questions anymore in your mind. Now the question becomes, does Emily feel the same way? And I've had it before where I said, no, they're definitely hungry. And she goes, well, I don't know. And I know, and this is what I heard. And all of a sudden you're questioning yours. So now you dial in and you focus more on that in the next series. I think so many of us, we might do a phone interview, we might do an in-person interview, and then we're ready to hire. And in my world, you just walked in the door at that point. We've got our first, data set. Now we're discussing that data set. Now we're going to call you back and we're going to say, hey, we'd really like you to come in and we'd like to do a working interview with you. That gets pretty exciting too.
I love that whole part, and let's not discount the fact that it's a working interview and they can find the time, you can find the time in your schedules. But do you explain up front, Bryan, to the candidate of the process that they're going to go through so that they know, so they're not sitting outside saying, oh, I wonder what's next?
I explain it on the first phone call. The very first thing I say is, Mr. Jones, is really good to talk to you. And I just want to tell you about our process. And I got to let you know that I'm doing the phone screen right now. We're going to have you in for an interview if we get past this point. If we get past that point, we may have you for a second interview, or we're going to bring you in for a working interview. Once we get through our working interview, we typically do a second one. Once we get that second interview done, then we roll into an assessment of you. And this is all, and quite simply, I know it sounds like a big task, but at the end of the day, we do this because we care about hiring the right person. We don't want to bring you in here and have you hate us or us not engage well with you. We're proud of our culture, and we'd like you to be a part of that. And if we don't think you're going to be a part of it, it's not worth your time or our time. I'm going to say with 90 percentile, the response I get back is, you know what? I've never had anybody say that. I didn't even realize you guys cared enough to do that. And the other 10%, well, it's just too much time. They're not my employee anyway.
When you've said to someone, we have to do it, then we have to do an assessment of you, do they say, what do you mean?
I've gotten that once or twice. That one surprised me because that was the hardest piece for me always to roll off my tongue. And I would say twice I've had somebody go, well, what does that mean? And then I explain, what is a profile assessment of you? And then the question is, well, why would you do that? And I, again, it's really simple. We want to know what your key characteristics are. There's really no bad answer in a profile assessment, but we want to know at the end of the day how to reward you. We want to know at the end of the day what things don't work for you. And then not to mention, we want to make sure you fit our culture that already exists, because if you don't fit our culture, it's not going to work well for either one of us. And we want it to be a good relationship at the end. Then again, most people, when they hear that, they realize it's not about manipulation. It's not about trying to push them into some dark hole or cause a problem. It's about opening it up and making a good relationship.
So when in the process, Bryan, do you show the job description?
I mean, I post a job description with the ad every time. And in a job description, I even go as far as to put a job description. Depends on the amount of content I can put in there. Some providers aren't great about this, but I also try to put job details. So what does your day look like? What are you physically doing? Not just a job description. And I think when people get a chance to read that, they have more questions when they walk in, and there's no surprises. So to me, that was always a very critical piece.
So far, this has been just incredible. Now, you got an opening, you got to post the job, you got to write an ad that's appealing, right? And do you struggle over that, or you got a good standard one in the queue?
I rewrite it most of the time. And what I find is you want to keep it fresh. You want it to sound personal. You want it to be engaging. I'll go pop into different outlets and pretend I'm the person looking for a job. And what you'll see a lot of times is technician needed, must be able to, must have, will have, only looking for, and I look at that and I go, wow, that really makes me feel warm and fuzzy. At the end of the day, we're trying to make somebody want to engage. We're trying to make them want to be a part of the team. And what I read there is a profile. And if you want the younger culture, if you want anything other than maybe baby boomer to X, probably in that upper window, which they're kind of going away, if you haven't noticed. If you want to bring in that new talent, it has to sound exciting. It has to sound personal. It has to talk about the benefits, not 401k, not a dental plan, not a medical plan. What they want to hear about are the day-to-day benefits. We do lunch every Friday. We celebrate in a team fashion. We train together. We constantly work on building each other up. Those are the things that they look at and they go, oh, this sounds more like a place where I'm going to spend 8 hours a day and maybe enjoy going to work. And I think that, again, that's the hook. How do you pull them in? Do
you allow personal cell phones?
Oh, I absolutely do, yeah.
And that's a millennial hook right there. You have to put in the ad if you're looking to hook a millennial.
You do. And a lot of guys don't like the idea of a cell phone. I tend to go on the other side of that fence and say, I am paying you to do a job. That means I trust you enough to pay you. Now, I also have to trust that you're going to use the time to do your job. And I also know that a cell phone makes you more efficient for many things that we do. Now, if we run into an issue where I feel like you're abusing it, you're doing things that aren't work related, we'll have a conversation. And that conversation, again, the internal culture that we have allows me to have a conversation that is, I would call it meaningful, and say, hey, we trust you. We really like you as part of the team, but you're letting us down, and here's why. It's critical that you have that.
So you got to put in your ad some of the reasons that you're different than other shops. And I know that there's someone traveling down the highway listening to this podcast right now saying, I wonder how I'm different. And my answer to you, if you're thinking that you don't know how you're different, is just ask your people.
Carm, you nailed it, because if there's anything that I know is whenever we talk about what we do and how we do it, the first place I go is to our daily meeting, and I'll say, okay, guys, this is what I got going on. Tell me what it is we do that really stands apart. And you'll see everybody will chime in. Again, that's a culture we have that we've built over time. Is I truly believe that the wealth of information in the business is within the people working here. And if I tried to capture all that up here, I'd just go nuclear. Wouldn't be worth my time.
Again, proof of concept. If you haven't built a great culture in your company, go to my website, go to the feature words, click on culture, start listening to these shows where so many great operators, so many great coaches have come on and, stitched together, sometimes what you need, but how you can do it, how you can start. And you get to the point where you can do an interview and have a hiring process like this to fit people into the culture that you don't have. Well, you need to have one. We cannot ignore the fact that it doesn't matter if we were a hair salon, that we needed a good culture in it or if it was a bakery or it's a restaurant. And it's just not that we're on this preaching soapbox that we need to have great cultures, but great cultures create great customers, create great people to work there, period.
I'll plug another book, The Culture Code. If we talk about culture, great place to start. And, I don't know if you plugged that before, but I'm a guy who, I can take a book a week, or I can take book after book after book. And you always find something in it. So just a quick shameless plug for that. Nothing coming back for me, but definitely a good place to start.
Is there anything that you would use for bait in trying to get someone to make a phone call to you?
So I've not been a guy. So a lot of guys will say you want to put a signing bonus in. You want to put monetary incentives in there to bring people in. And I've never done it. Have yet to ever put a monetary type of a hook in there. Everything for us has always been who we are, what we do. And I've always believed if you can get them to call, the minute they're on the phone with you, you got to be selling to them. And everybody's worked for a place that they don't necessarily love, or in some cases they really despise. And if you can show them why you are just the opposite, you've set that hook. And now it's your job once they come in to determine whether or not they fit you. And I think a lot of us get lost in that initial hook set because we make that call and we forget we are selling our company to this person. And doesn't matter who it is that calls, doesn't matter how it picks up, sell your company, because even if they don't buy it and don't come in and get hired, they might tell their friend that that's the next place to go get their car worked on. So you always have to be selling, especially during a hire and during an interview.
Always be selling. Okay, so we're at that point. We've done everything you just said. I want to know what your process is of making a decision. Now, I also have a question about money, but let's hold that up over here somewhere, okay? You take the feedback from the in-work experience. You take the feedback from any of the personal interviews. You get together again. You hear the input. You take some notes. And then you're sitting down, Bryan, I'm sure, trying to make a decision based on all the inputs. And if the candidate got that far, that means that they're close, right? If you're getting ready to say, you would have said no a long time ago if you saw some bad signs, but you're getting close. What struggle do you have, if any, in saying, okay, it's time to talk money?
Very minimal. At this point, you've been through the phone, you've been through. So we'll say we've gone from phone, we've gone to in-person, we've gone working 1, working 2, potentially working 3, depending on what we saw. And after each one of those, you've had a debrief, myself and the staff that have worked around them. And we start talking, what's missing? What don't you see? And this is kind of a critical piece here, because this is where the exchange happens. If we believe they've really covered everything, and it depends on what kind of position too, if it's a management position or even an advisor. A lot of times, if I believe we've vetted to the point that we feel comfortable, but maybe we have a question about their humility, or maybe we have a question about how hungry they are, because usually we know people smart. You know if they can or they can't. So it's almost always one of those two. And now I might take them out to dinner. My wife and myself might say, hey, you know what? Let's go out to dinner on such and such a night. And now you get a chance to see them away. And that's one of those things that you got to remember too. Just because you've seen how they operate in your business doesn't tell you what they're really like. Get them out of the business. Get them somewhere else. And, and sometimes we'll set up a remote interview for that as well. But we get to that next step. Then we go one further even. We make sure on the reference checks, we tailor our questions to, so if we're concerned about humility, tell me a little bit about how they worked with other people. Did they appreciate being in charge? Did they work well as a subordinate? How did that work for them? And your questions are tailored in these reference checks to, again, back up what you think you already know. At this point, we begin to talk about, okay, here you are, and here's what we're offering in the job. And the job's always going to be clearly stated. There's going to be, a range from here to here. And at that point, we know their experience. We know how hard they're, we should know enough about them to where I can say, okay, here's where we feel comfortable. And I want to tell you, this is a 90-day. At the end of 90 days, we're going to review this, and we're going to see if your pay is commensurate with what you're doing. And let me tell you about why that is. Because we operate under a policy. Here's the profits we need to make. Here is how we get to these profits. And quite honestly, if we're not making these profits, we're going to have a hard time being in business. If we have a hard time being in business, we have a hard time paying your paycheck. So all of it has to work. And what you usually get back is, oh, so it's a 90-day, and 85% at that point go, okay, that works. The other 15% might negotiate up. And like I tell everybody who I bring in, what I'm offering you is based on what I see. It's not set in stone, but it's based on everything that you've told me and what I expect to get back out. At that point, it just kind of rolls. I've had very few people, like I say, it's in the 15th percentile that go, I just have to have more. And I can think of one, Angie works for me now. She's an assistant up at my front desk. And we brought her in actually at what I would call a subpar wage. And she called me on it. She said, I really don't feel like you're paying me what I'm worth. I said, you're right. We're not. But let me explain to you why. And she goes, okay, yeah, that works. And at 90 days, we can go over this. As long as you can tell them why, as long as they understand it. And again, you've sold yourself this whole way through. Now that it comes time for that pay piece, the pay is secondary. They're here because they want to be here. They want to be a part of the team. And you can't pay them below. You can't make it where they can't live. You have to be in the range. But doesn't mean you have to be off the chart, because I really do believe pay is secondary to almost every person's concern when they take a job. And if it's not, they might be at the wrong place.
So you got an A-lister, and you mentioned the word range. When you offer the pay program, be it salary, be it flat rate with a bonus, however each individual has to get formed in shape as far as a compensation plan, and you have a range, does the person say, well, why are you starting me on the low side of the range?
Yeah, if you start them out low, yeah, absolutely. And that's why, again, if you've sold your culture right, you've sold the business correctly, and then you've explained to them, this is your 90-day window.
But I'm sitting back thinking, Bryan, that I'm going to, when I get a review in 90 days, there may be more money.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. I tell you that up front. It'll be based on your performance and what we see in output. And here's how we measure it. Because if you can't measure it, you can't do anything else about it.
And if they stop giving you that output because they did it just in order to get the money, you have a baseline to review from and to hold them accountable to.
Absolutely. And that doesn't mean that we offer everybody a low entry. It just means that there is a chunk of people, because you're not sure. It's really easy to raise somebody's pay. It's almost impossible to reduce it. And when you do reduce it, you might as well write them off, because most people are not going to stick around. Coming in, if there is any fear in your mind that they can't do what you need or can't do it at the ultimate A+ level, you can't offer them that dollar. And you can look them in the eyes and tell them, here's why I can't offer you that, because you've already built it. You already know what you're looking for.
I know that you would love to talk about the review process, but I don't want to just make it quick, down and dirty and short. Would you come back and share your review process with us?
Oh, I'd love to. We use the review process that I'll talk about at the 90-day, and I'll give you just a sweetener on it, which is I'm a person who doesn't believe in the review process. It is really a broken system. It has historically been a manager who writes it down. And we all know about the brown noser that the manager loves. And one day and again, because I hate doing it, and B, it drives me crazy to think about the fact that I'm reviewing somebody I don't even work with every day. I see, I come out and I talk to you, but I don't necessarily know anything other than the numbers. I know what you've done, what you've produced, but that's all I can grade you on. I can't grade you on your attitude. I can't grade you on how you work with your employees. And I'm trying to do a performance review. And then I remember sitting in my office and going, this is absolutely absurd. You look great on paper, but what does that mean? And then from that, I went and just started doing some research on what I could do and what I found that actually worked. And I went, you know what? It's not about me. It's about the employee, because at the end of the day, the review should be employee-centric. And at the end of the day, you want them to grow. It's not about penalties. It's not about hanging a stick in a carrot. It's about growing your person. And that was where all of a sudden I went, oh, this is pretty straightforward. How do we grow them? That was where our true 360-degree review came in, and it's the only way to go.
What a great tease. I I can't wait. I just can't. Thank you so much, Bryan Kelley, Valley Automotive, Covington, Washington, and also president of ASA Northwest.
Yes, indeed. We've got lots going on over here in the Northwest.
I bet you do. And by the way, this whole hiring thing started when you came on Aftermarket Weekly episode 36, and we did like 8 minutes on this. And then I think you'll hear me in the episode say, you got to come back and you got to take this. You actually got to open it up. So thank you for coming back and doing that. And then episode 36, we also had a tour of your place too from Emily. I remember that. So anyone wants to go out and, all the virtual tours that we do from aftermarketweekly.com, they're all on the web at aftermarketweekly.com. Hey, Bryan. Appreciate it so much, man. Thanks for being here. And I look forward to getting back and doing another episode on the review process.
Well, Carm, I really appreciate it. And like I said before, if you can take one thing away, because in order to figure out what I figured out, I had to screw it up a whole lot of times. So if I can give somebody just a piece that makes it better for them, then I did my job. So much appreciated.
Thanks for being on board to listen and learn from the premier automotive aftermarket podcast. Until next time.